Welcome to the stone hands, to the hands of stone that carve the reality. The love of the sea, or the love of the one, the ancient kingdom of the thunder lords of the Åland and Gotland and Saaremaa, the ancient Viking masters who ruled the seas, who were the carriers of great wealth, the master traders who lived long time ago and who ruled the north, the great kingdom of Kalevala, the mythical ultima Thule, the north. These are the key words of unlocking the dying languages of the Finno-Ugric branch, the Finns. There are around 10 million Finno-Ugric language speakers still left in this world, a dying breed of once upon time a great deal of a language that was spoken. The word Varanyani, the Varangs, the Podigos of the Byzantium, the Podigos of the Empire, who used to wear the swords and axes, who were the Viking kind. They were the ones, the Finns, the ancient Finno-Ugric brotherhood, who now has diminished to a few. And it's normal to diminish, because the deeds, the bloody, vicious deeds of the ancients, they bring back to the knowledge, to the knowing that everything will be paid once upon time. The ancient ship burials, when a leader, a woman or a man, was put under fire with their ship, all the animals, the horses, the riches, the swords, the armory, the maidens, the helpers, they all were put into the fire. And this creates an implicit karma for the next generations. So we are speaking a secret language, a language that will soon be forgotten, but our imprint to the world will never be forgotten. Like the knowledge, the Vikings who raided the world, actually they were Finns, and a little bit of them were Germanic, but mostly they were Finns, and they were great traders in the Baltic seas, in the Northern Sea, and they came to the Mediterranean, and they were the ones who became into Normans, the Norsemen. Yes, the chieftains, the Viking names, the kings of the Norway, the kings of the Saxons, they descended from the Finns, from the kingdom of Kalevala. For you to know, there lays a lot that has been forgotten, because there was such a powerful and almighty kind of men and women. And most important, they were different. It was not a patriarchy, but it was an even civilization where the patriarch or a matriarch were both the ones that ruled. The tombs of the women that have been found have been as great as the men, and they had councils, strict orders of rule, and the leaders were always elected from the peasantry. They were not born into, but they were chosen, and they gathered around in the doomsday gatherings, or the gatherings of the folk, and from the folk councils, the great leaders were chosen, who decided about building the ships or harnessing the land, or how shall the people live in the times of the great Kalevala, of the Kalevi kingdoms. So the high king who ruled the land, the most famous of them was the Kalev, who was the so-called mythological great king, and his wife Linda. They both together ruled, but they were elected by the high councils. They were not being born into their privilege, but they were chosen because of their wisdom, of their knowledge and their might. That's how the world worked in the past. Nowadays we have this democratic way of power that demonizes people and is decided by the marketing cost. The politicians who come into power, they have more money to market their power, and sometimes the money is not evenly distributed or does not come from a fair source of income. Quite often the money could be manipulated, so the politicians who come into power are not fair to the people. For example, there was a disruption a few years ago or several years ago when Donald Trump became a president of United States of America. That was this disruptive event because he financed his stuff himself and he was self-made president, but still the money. But if we could have councils of people who choose their elders, who choose their leaders, and from the leaders they gather like the old ancient Native American tribes, they had this circles where they were speaking and talking, and the leaders were chosen, and then the leaders went to represent their own tribe, their own community. Can't we use the same methodology nowadays? Why we have come to a false power of people? Because the minority is never listened, but if we can have talking circles, 50 people, 60 people, 100 people, and have local communities with their talking circles, we could find new ways of love, or actually old ways, and create rules where all the people have been listened to diminish the violence, the criminality, diminish the importance of war. As we cannot understand why there are only two leaders talking to each other. If we could put the leaders into a circle, into a talking circle, and choose them justly, we could have totally different system of governance. Of course, the Vikings, they raided, they destroyed, they took prisoners of war. Yes, the time was like that. It was a time of blood and violence, but also there was not that much violence as we have made to believe. Because how poor peasants and farmers could grow their food and sustain themselves if they are raided and killed each year? No, it was not like that. There was a lot more peace, a lot more time to contemplate than we tend to think. There are stories of our folk, of our ancient folk, of having seen fairies and elves walking from time to time. And what does that mean? Walking from time to time, a person unreveals the wheels of time and goes to the future or to the past and communicates with different people throughout the time, throughout the layers. Nowadays it's called quantum leaping, but those memories and contact with the extraterrestrials, it was normal. It happened to almost all of the people who were working with the land because they were connected with the elements. They were doing their simple work, and they were treating with their altered states of consciousness, because they worked with the daylight and they worked with the darkness. And in the north, the day and the night are different during the summer and during the winter. During the summer we have long days, during the winter we have long nights, and, and that dictates our rhythms, how we work, how we behave with the elements of the nature. And there are many stories and observations of extraterrestrial contact that was named in other ways, like the dog people, lizard people, the great people, the giants, the stories of the ancient giants. We have many over here. The great giants who went over the sea, the giants who built those buildings over here, and giants who rescued people from their ill fate. So the mythology is not always a myth, but it can be the true stories from the past that now has been suppressed by this logical, mechanical world that is ruled by the demos, by the democratic. So the money has led the research, but no one tells about the destroyed bones of giants. Like in the Soviet time newspapers, there were quite often articles that now again the bones of the giants have been found. But nowadays those articles have been destroyed, so their knowledge has been suppressed and the bones have been destroyed. So we normal people could not discover the real truth about the ancient extraterrestrial contact, the ancient greatness of civilizations, and how people really behaved and lived in their simple lives and simple living. We have come to this place of belief that all that we see in front of us is real, but no, we have access to many layers of altered states of reality, and also we have access to many beings in this same reality. As we can tune our frequency, we can encompass them to our own being, to our own self-actualization. Like for example, when you look at Ireland, how many stories there are about the fairies, the fair folk, because the Ireland is full of paramagnetic stones, and people quite easily in the fairy circles, in the stone circles, they can adjust their sense of reality and drift into an altered state of consciousness where they are able to see the folk of other kind, the fairy folk, the forest folk, the folk from the shadows. Yes, I have seen also. I've seen orbs, I've seen strange creatures, I've seen things changing, like the shamans from the Siberia. They tell about the Bigfoots and the giants. It's normal, but many people have been programmed into this mechanical, mathematical layer of the world, into the computers, where we tend to forget. But when a child sees in a computer game a mythological being or a giant, a child remembers, yes, my ancestors used to see that. My ancestors used to be in contact with the giants. My ancestors used to have out-of-body experiences, and they used to travel from time to time. There are many memories of written stories how people saw those ancient people from the future, from the past, how they traveled. They asked some simple questions, they communicated, and then they went back into their own time and just stayed there and lived their humble, simple lives. That's all possibility, and we can remember that when we are more in contact with the nature, with the forest, we ground ourselves and we work with the land. No, you don't have to do physical labor from 8 hours a day. You can just be connected to the forest, to the land, and the revelations will occur. So that was all for today. I wish you a good day.